We are back with Lantern Control, kind of our final game from the leagues we played on the weekend that we'll be showing off this week. This weekend will probably be a bit more educational stuff, and then back to gameplay next week. So we open up a pretty nice hand here. Saga can get Lantern to complete the lock with the double Shredder and Bridge, so easy keep. On the draw, so they're going to go Forest into an Ancient Stirrings. This is going to be either Tron or Hardened Scales, and they reveal a Patchwork Automaton, meaning they're definitely on Scales. Scales is one deck where it's actually very important to have Ensnaring Bridge at 0 cards in hand, as even just having one creature can get through. So we're going to run out a Shredder here. Just kind of start assembling the lock. Nothing too special in the first couple turns. Importantly, with Urza Saga, Haywire Might is a very common card in most Hardened Scales list, so it is going to be the first target of Pithing Needle, just with such an easy way of getting it. So they run out Apache here, and again this will be a creature hopefully Bridge can take care of. We pick up an Academy Ruins, which is pretty nice. If the game goes long, and we'll be able to start milling ourselves. So we're just going to run out the Needle on Haywire Might right away. And Codex Shredder, as previously mentioned, we're just trying to empty our hand as much as we can. Some matchups you can kind of sit at maybe 1 or 2 cards in hand, and they'll be big enough that they're creatures that they can't attack through Bridge. But against Scales, even a 1/1 with things like Archbound Ravager, just being able to move all the counters around, they can do that very quickly. So Pithing Needle definitely has a lot of targets you can name out of Scales. You can name things like Ravager, you can name Inkmoth, Haywire Might. There are a lot of stuff you can name with it. Visaggio they usually play. No shortage of targets. So we're gonna run a Bridge out here. We usually, when you're trying to empty your hand for Bridge, you want to play your most expensive things first, and then move to your least expensive ones last. Also, if they cast another artifact, the one Patchwork will grow big enough that Bridge will save us damage, even though right now they're still able to attack. And so they're going to go get the Ozolith here, which is going to give them lots of counters. They're then going to play an Archbound, and I actually think they missed lethal here. Maybe some Scales players can tell me, but if they sacrifice everything, putting the counters on the Ozolith and the Ravager, then go to combat, swing with Inkmoth, and then move everything onto the Nexus, maybe I'll put 3, 5, I'll put 6 counters here, plus 3 on the Ravager, so I'll put it, and then plus the counters that Ravager gets. So we're just dead to Inkmoth here. We could have named Inkmoth with Needle, but if we didn't name Inkmoth, they would have got Haywire Might instead of the Ozolith. Would have been able to exile Bridge, and we would have been dead anyway. But they do miss it. They just attack with their creatures. Obviously, not this Patchwork like I was talking about. Yeah, not sure why they didn't see this. Maybe just learning Scales, and they play a Soul Cauldron here. Obviously, very good if they. In this build, we're not playing Pixis, we're just playing Shredder and Gold Color's Bell because of Surgical Extraction, so we do need to find an answer to the Soul Cauldron, because if we mill any problematic cards, they can use the Cauldron to get them back. We draw another Bridge here, obviously not great, as we're trying to empty our hand very quickly. Saga's going to go get a Lantern, just to do the lock with the Shredder, and we kind of have to exile the Soul Cauldron. We could Thoughtseize and Ensnaring Bridge. It doesn't make much of a difference here. They're gonna sacrifice a bunch of stuff, get exiled just to get more counters. We're dead to Inkmoth here, so can kind of hope they don't see it. I don't think that's going to be super likely, but they're going to get themselves another Urza Saga with the new Echoing Deeps card. Pretty cool card, getting back Urza Saga, Tron lands, that kind of thing. But they see it, they fire up their Inkmoth, so so they can swing under Bridge and then pump it after, and Bridge won't protect us. So that's kind of why you really want to have your hand empty with Bridge and against Scales. So let's get him back in game 2. When sideboarding for Hardened Scales, we're going to take out Cookbook and Spellbomb. Just kind of not the most impactful Saga targets. We take out Surgical and Inquisition, just kind of have things we're bringing in that we would prefer. So we're bringing in Welding Jar, a couple copies of Haywire Might, Pithing Needle, and Stone of Eric shuts down all their modular abilities. So it's a good card to have in this matchup. And then bringing in a Spellskite for the same reason, we can actually redirect modular triggers to Spellskite if that comes up. We open a pretty nice hand here, as Shredder, Saga can get Lantern, Bridge, Haywire Might, and we're actually going to slow roll the, they mull down to 5, and we're going to slow roll the Haywire Might. We don't want them, if they have a Saga in hand, we do want them running it out somewhat early, so we're gonna do our best to induce that by not playing the Saga here. We're not playing the Haywire Might, sorry. And so they're going to start off, typical Hardened Scales. He's going to play Namesake card. And then on the early turns, there's not a ton. It's kind of just, so we grab a Lantern with Ancient Stirrings, kind of lock them early. We do see a couple Pithing Needles go, but we play 4 and Saga can get 1 too if needed. So not too worried about that here. Just getting that turn 2 lock, and obviously we're going to mill Boseiju. Don't want them to have that. And here, so they play an Inkmoth. Killed us last game, but hopefully we can get our hand empty a bit faster. So you're going to run out a Hangerback Walker. Importantly, they don't have an Archbound Ravager yet, which is kind of the key card in order to pump their creatures at instant speed. So we just run out of Bridge. And next turn we can get down to 1, and then the turn after should be able to lock them. So they Stirrings here and find a Ravager, which is a pretty good card for them, but hopefully we're just fast enough to beat them. So they start getting in with the Walker, and of course, however, are sort of running out of time. And because of the presence of this Hangerback Walker, we actually elect to so we Saga here, we're floating mana. Obviously we're not making constructs. The Inkmoth has flying, Zabaz can get flying. Not yet, but it could. Hangerback Walker is going to make a bunch of flying tokens, so we're not too concerned with that. Like I said, because of Inkmoth here, we are going to name Pithing Needle on Inkmoth. We're going to run out the second Bridge and be down to 1 card in hand, so it's going to be very difficult for them to kill us with anything other than Inkmoth, so we're just kind of limiting their options here, and we have another Needle on top. So we're going to run out the Saga, run out the second Bridge, and run out the Haywire Might. So their stuff can attack, and at this point we're in pretty good shape, provided they didn't, their last card, I believe they have 1 unknown here, and it turns out it's a Zabaz. So this is perfect. We basically have them totally locked at this point. Scales does not draw a lot of extra cards, so it is going to be a relatively easy matchup to keep them in check. That being said, we see a Boseiju on top, which we are just going to Needle. I think you could mill it, but then you run the risk of seeing another problematic card on top without a mill rock. So I think here we just elect for the safer line of needling Boseiju so that they can draw it no problem. So we run out a Needle on Boseiju. At this point we're going to grab another Shredder with Saga. Kind of make some blockers if anything happens to Bridge. Not very likely, but it could happen. And just grab another Shredder here. And at this point it's all about milling them out. You will notice that we're up on clock a bit. Scales does have a lot of triggers. It's very important to usually yield until end step against them. But here with over 18 minutes, more than enough time to win this game and also win the next game. They do concede shortly. They don't make us play it out too much longer. As we're just going to mill basically Stirrings, anything that draws them an extra card, we're going to mill. And that's kind of how you close it out. Obviously you want to go quickly, but these decks you can go a lot quicker against decks without instant speed draw. So we run out of Stone, which is going to shut down any of their modular shenanigans. With pending on top, kind of they don't really have much here, and they realize it soon as we're just have them totally locked. So we get the win in game 2 here, and let's keep it rolling for game 3. For game 3, we got no sideboarding decisions to make. We just keep it the same, and we keep a nice 7 here. Stone is pretty good against them. Saga plus Shredder is going to be the Lantern lock, and hopefully Stirrings can find a bridge, or we can find a bridge another way. Thoughtseize is nice to have. So let's see how these early turns go. We run out Spire over Glimmer Void, always, I would say. There's not really ever a situation where you run Glimmer Void out first. Stone's very nice. They have a lot of death triggers, so it's going to hopefully really slow them down. And they play an Urza Saga here, which isn't great. It does mean they're going to be able to get a Haywire Might before we can. And you're actually going to see how that impacts some of our plays on the coming turns here, knowing that they are able to get a Haywire Might. We do still run out the Saga. That doesn't change. But we're actually going to go for a bit more on the construct side of things, as we do want that threat. And I'll talk about it a bit more as we get to it. But they're going to play Saga here and just run out a Hangerback Walker. Again, they're not going to make 1/1s from it with Stone, so this Stone is going to cause them a lot of problems. And they get in for 2, that's fine, pretty low clock. And we draw a bridge here, which is really nice. Now you might be tempted to run out the bridge here right away, just get it down, but I think that's actually incorrect. We're going to make constructs here, because if they get a Haywire Might with Urza Saga, we want them to fire it off at either Saga or Stone. We don't want them to fire it off on bridge. If we run out the bridge here and then they get a Haywire Might and exile our bridge, we're in a lot of trouble. Whereas if they fire it off on a Saga, that's fine, as we still have bridge and other protection pieces. So we're just going to hold up our constructs here, and importantly, our constructs will be bigger than kind of their whole board right now, which is kind of very important for stabilizing and forcing them. One thing you can do a lot with constructs is forcing them to have an answer to the constructs, which then uses up their answers that they would have back for bridge anyway. So you drain them on resources by forcing them to answer the constructs, and then once they've done that, you run out bridge when they don't have anything else for that, and then you're able to win that way. We do make a construct here, as Pithing Needle is a card they could be playing. But they elect to just get the Ozolith, so kind of odd not to see Haywire Might, but it happens. We actually do see something similar here, where they Boseiju our Stone of Eric. Again, if we had ran that bridge out, the Boseiju probably would have gone after Ensnaring Bridge, and then we'd be in a lot of trouble. So kind of a situation where you don't just immediately want to run bridge out. Now, it is going to be a bit tight over the next couple turns, as our life total isn't going to be super high, as they are going to be able to mount pretty decent pressure. And I think we have to chump here. Being able to sacrifice everything, they can really load up on one creature regardless. So we'd rather have them sacrificing before they get kind of too much chip damage in. We kind of want to minimize like the 4 we'd take from Hangerback Walker. And so effectively, by blocking Archbound Ravager, we're blocking Hangerback Walker and the Ravager, just at the cost of a construct. Importantly, they are only at 1 land, so depending, we can potentially keep them at 1, which is going to slow them down significantly, hopefully, just as they used Saga and Boseiju. And yep, so we're just going to mill them a bit just to get some more information. Oops. And yeah, as we go to our turn, we're going to float mana. We're not making a construct anymore. All their Thopters have flying, and they have Archbound Ravager on the board, which is obviously a very powerful creature if you've played against Affinity before. We're going to run out the Thoughtseize and take the Nature's Claim. It's actually huge here. We would have been dead without casting this Thoughtseize, and you'll see how close we come to death anyway. Importantly, they do only have that 1 land, so we're going to let them draw all their 2 mana cards, and we're just going to run out Bridge and another Shredder here, and they're actually able to put us down to 1. So between Ravager and all the Thopters, we're going to be at 1 life, but 1 life is better than 0. And we're not going to take any risks with the Ballista here. We are going to mill it. Yes, they're only on 1 land, but even still, we don't want to have to keep them off a second land and problematic cards the entire game. So they go through the motions here, kind of sacrificing all of their artifacts in order to put all their tokens, all their counters on 1 artifact, which gets us down to 1. We barely survive. However, they have no ways of dealing direct damage. We saw what's in their hand, protection spell, other things. So once we're empty-handed, we're good. So we run out the fair. Importantly, Glimmervoid, very clutch here, as we're able to use green mana. Otherwise, Spire would be turned off and we would just die. Yeah, so we take the Needle. Obviously, we can't take any of the lands, and we're just gonna run out a Needle on Walking Ballista, as it can kill us from here, and we kind of have, it doesn't really matter what we Needle here. With 3 Mill Rocks, we're basically 100% to win this game. I think anytime you're against Lantern and they have the Lantern lock plus 3 Mill Rocks, you can safely concede. Like they never draw out of this. We are going to leave the Inventor's Fair on the battlefield for a couple turns, just in case, gaining us a bit of extra life, just as an extra precaution. And we keep running out of Mill Rocks, milling them. Great spot here for Lantern, and we get there against Scales. So I'm going to keep clicking, kind of talking a bit, and there isn't too much more important in this game, but key thing, Bridge against Scales, your hand needs to be completely empty. Knowing when to run Bridge out, so the pressure from the constructs combined with Bridge is a really nice dual threat out of Lantern, so kind of being able to weaponize that. And yeah, if you're playing against Lantern, concede to 3 Mill Rocks. 13 minutes, you'll notice I have an extra 4.5 minutes of time over them. Just being able to yield to the triggers from Hardened Scales is very important. Being efficient with your own creatures, or with your own triggers, sorry, all kind of important skills of playing Lantern. So hopefully you've enjoyed these gameplay videos this week, learned something about playing Lantern, and look forward to continuing to share my thoughts on the deck with you guys. So keep doing the Lantern grind.